Republicans have been very kind to me from the beginning. Even from the beginning, when Bobby was running as a Democrat, they weren't mean.
No.
And they never have been.
No.
And I can't say that for the Democrats.
I agree.
And it's
sad because it's not the Democrats we grew up with.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the difference that people don't, I think, see. They're like, why did you turn on the Democrats? Well, first of all, I didn't. Like I said, we voted for the same person. But I'm not going to pretend I don't notice how different they are.
Yeah.
How mean they've become.
Yeah, he listened.
I think he actually wants more people around him for a stimulating conversation.
Yeah.
I was very surprised at, and mentioned it again, they hated me for it, that as opposed to so many important people I've met who, when you talk to them, you don't feel like they're really listening. They're kind of like, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And then when they answer you, it doesn't quite track.
Uh-huh.
You know?
You're just waiting for their turn to talk.
Yeah.
When Bill Maher and Cheryl Hines teamed up to call out the Democrats, the result turned unexpectedly hilarious. The two longtime supporters painted a picture of a party slowly coming apart. They described heading to a meeting that once felt full of promise, but now carries a completely different energy. All right, here we go.
Really, really does not like war.
Which I love that about him.
I kind of do, because I don't want war either, and most of them are unnecessary.
I agree.
I mean, he took a long time when I had that dinner with him talking about the pictures he sees coming from Ukraine, the stuff that doesn't get out on the news. It's like raw footage of bodies in the field.
Yes.
And you could tell it really moved him.
He's
like, I do not want to see this, and I'm the kind of guy who can fix this.
It's fascinating to see Bill Maher and Cheryl Hines openly acknowledge how noticeable this shift has become. Yet this newer, more reflective version of Maher, who has lost a few longtime allies while unexpectedly gaining a wave of new supporters, has completely flipped the familiar narrative on its head. Plenty of people within his own party can't make sense of it. Some even suggest he's simply worn out by the Democrats' constant back and forth decisions. Whatever the real reason may be, the change is impossible to ignore, and it's sparking far more conversation than anything he said during all those years of routine party-approved commentary.
He's never not going to be Trump. So, of course, he's like, I saw 9 wars. And, you know, okay, even if it's half that, it's still good that we're solving them and not starting them.
That's the thing that I find that I really like about President Trump when he talks about wars and talks about Ukraine. And he talks about Ukraine and Russia, and he will say they're losing people on both sides.
He's been vocal about constant disagreements, and he's made it clear that ending the conflict in Ukraine is one of his top goals. Whether people approve of his approach or not, it's obvious that his choices are reshaping the landscape. Maher emphasized that his plan is far from the one President Biden followed. That alone signals a major shift in direction. No matter how you see it, it's tough to ignore that this change is something Biden had long hoped to achieve, yet couldn't make happen during his time in office. His calls for peaceful negotiations or even a change in how events were unfolding never fully materialized. Now, this move is shaping up to be a major political win with effects that reach far beyond one country.
He's very curious, and what
they
you have
hated
to say.
when I said that. Again, because I'm just telling you what happened. What, should I lie?
I guess so. I guess
right.
That's
He
what they
kicked me in the balls under the table, and then
I knew he would.
He threw the spaghetti against the wall when I raised the subject of tariffs. No. No.
I'm pretty sure a lot of Democrats are frustrated with Bill Maher after his latest comments. For years, people expected him to stick to the party's familiar script and keep criticizing without pause. He could come across as warm and friendly, and then suddenly everything took a sharp turn. Cheryl Hines can back this up, and her own experience only highlights what many chose not to see. Everyone assumed Maher would leave the event armed with more frustration, sharper jokes, and fresh outrage. Instead, he returned with a calmer attitude that has upset some of his longtime supporters all by itself. In truth, this reveals how some people really think. They weren't taught to dislike him based on personal experience or their own judgment. And that routine was just disrupted by Maher.
Listen.
Yeah, I think he actually wants more people around him for stimulating conversation.
Yeah.
I was very surprised at, and mentioned it again, they hated me for it, that as opposed to so many important people I've met who, when you talk to them, you don't feel like they're really listening. They're kind of like, you know what I mean? And then when they answer you, it doesn't quite track, you know?
You're just waiting for their turn to talk.
Yes.
This moment is both fun to watch and surprisingly eye-opening. Everyone knows that politicians walk into interviews armed with polished lines, tidy stories, and rehearsed replies. It often feels like they're reading from an invisible script hovering above the camera. And when an interviewer tries to unsettle them with a tough or unexpected question, most won't shift even an inch. They stick to their memorized remarks with almost machine-like energy, repeating the same phrases even when their answers no longer match the question at all. It creates these odd, slightly awkward scenes where the mismatch becomes instantly obvious. The interviewer asks something simple and fair, and the politician responds with something totally off track, yet oddly familiar. That's what makes this particular moment stand out. It shows how refreshing it is when someone actually steps away from the usual routine, and how deeply trained many politicians are to stay inside it.
Just on a different level. I mean, these are show people too. I've had that. But I didn't get that with him at all.
No.
I got a guy who looked in my eye, was listening to what I said, waited until I finished, even when it was contradictory, when it was he never got blustery or mad about it. You know, he said some things that I don't agree with and some things that I think are just, you know, plainly not right, like, you know, third term, I think you could do it. I'm having people look into it. No, you can't do it. and you can have people look into it from now until the end of time. It's like 12 words in the Constitution. You can't do it.
This also helps explain why Kamala Harris so often gave broad, fuzzy answers instead of clear ones. At times, she slipped into those well-known word salad moments, long, polished sentences that sounded thoughtful but offered very little detail, even when the question called for real explanation. In several interviews, it didn't feel like she was responding to what was actually being asked. Instead, she seemed focused on circling back to her prepared lines even when they didn't fit the moment at all. It was as if she was waiting for the safer questions to return so she could settle back into familiar territory. And when leaders choose the script over genuine conversation, it becomes obvious right away. Harris's interviews ended up showing how sticking too tightly to rehearsed phrases can leave audiences puzzled, unsure, and wanting more.
Republicans have been very kind to me from the beginning. Even from the beginning, when Bobby was running as a Democrat, they weren't mean.
No.
And they never have been.
No.
And I can't say that for the Democrats.
I agree.
And it's
sad because it's not the Democrats we grew up with.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the difference that people don't, I think, see. They're like, why did you turn on the Democrats? Well, first of all, I didn't. Like I said, we voted for the same person. But I'm not going to pretend I don't notice how different they are.
Yeah.
How mean they've been.
Remember, they aren't neutral commentators or distant onlookers. So when longtime Democrats suddenly say something positive about their biggest political opponent, certain parts of the left react with shock. There's no room for subtlety, exceptions, or personal judgment. That's why some Democrats and left-leaning media voices get upset when people like Bill Maher or Cheryl Hines step outside the usual script and acknowledge qualities or situations they're not supposed to mention. It shakes the story they've worked hard to protect. For some, even imagining that a Democrat might find him likable feels almost disloyal, and that's what makes all of this so revealing. It shows just how emotionally heavy and rigid political expectations have become.
Democrats have been having a lot of donor retreats lately where liberal strategists hold ideathons, where they try to figure out why they keep losing elections. You know, apart from using words like ideathon. And now one idea that's getting a lot of attention is the Dems need to find their Joe Rogan, a liberal Joe Rogan, because that's why Kamala lost. Republicans have a podcast.
For years, Republicans were painted as the harsh, unbending force in American politics. But now, Bill Maher and Cheryl Hines are reshaping that picture through their own experiences and observations. It's becoming clearer that the Democratic Party can be just as, if not more, intense toward anyone who steps outside the approved viewpoint. The moment you share an opinion that doesn't match the expected script, the reaction shifts fast. Instead of simple disagreement, they go after you. Some will try to shut you out entirely, mock you, or label you with hurtful names. The message couldn't be more direct. Agree with us completely or face the consequences. Maher and Hines calling attention to this shift matters because it highlights something many people have felt but were hesitant to say out loud. Democrats aren't always the gentle side they claim to be. They can be extremely forceful.
You could consider this. Instead of conjuring up a new Joe Rogan, ask yourself why you lost the old one. Because he used to be on your side. He smokes pot on the air. I don't think he's that much of a far-right ideologue. I don't think his mind is completely inflexible. His neck, yes. But not his mind. And he's expressed unease with some things Trump is doing, as has a certain disgruntled former employee named Elon Musk, who, like Joe, is another guy who 5 years ago was thought of as a liberal, but got driven into the other camp by bad attitudes and bad ideas.
It's true, every bit of it. But for many Democrats, Joe Rogan alone isn't enough. They want someone who speaks boldly, stays honest even when it's uncomfortable, and isn't afraid to challenge the more sensitive corners of their base. Someone who openly questions the party's growing push toward socialism without softening the message. Right now, the party lacks that kind of strength. They need a figure who can handle criticism, admit mistakes, and avoid chasing every new ideological fad. They need leaders who won't hide behind rehearsed lines, who inspire trust by being real, and who aren't scared of upsetting social media crowds. Maher's point is simple. New voices aren't enough by themselves. The party needs people who are steady, confident, and willing to stand their ground when it matters. Until that happens, they won't regain their stability. And because of this rigid mindset, figures like Robert F. Kennedy and Cheryl Hines are stepping away from the liberal camp. Many Democrats are becoming increasingly frustrated with the direction their party is heading. Its policies, philosophies, and overall path no longer feel logical, or worse, they feel fundamentally wrong, not due to a single issue, but because the party seems out of touch with reality. It often punishes anyone who questions the narrative and prioritizes ideological purity over practical solutions. Unfortunately, even as people leave, the party shows little sign of reconsidering or adjusting its course. Longtime supporters feel disappointment and disillusionment when change is resisted out of stubbornness or fear of losing control. It's a serious warning. Talented, thoughtful voices are being pushed away by an unwillingness to adapt or admit mistakes. Unless the party evolves, more allies will continue looking elsewhere. That wraps up today's video. For more content like this, click like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.